It's from Carlisle, which we spell with an S. Sweet Bianca.
Good. Okay, great.
So, we had a different director every time, so it's always kind of interesting to come back.
Starting with Catherine Hardwicke, to Chris Weitz, to David Slade, to Bill Condon.
Part of what was interesting to me is that each of those previous films is very different one to the other. And each director's had a completely different approach to those movies, so it is a chance to put your mark on it.
I mean, he's had a very, very different story to work with. When a lot of people could have, balked at the subject matter, he kind of embraced it. And also liked the idea of embracing the horror aspects of it, which is quite bold.
Rose, no. Let the morphine spread.
There's no time. He's dying.
Cut. Okay. Cut.
And he's a visual director. I mean, if you really think of Dreamgirls and, the world of kind of stage and musical, it's a visual medium itself.
Just close up that gap a little, right? Good. The idea of that little linger you did, like holding back to the last look at him, that was excellent. I think you could do a little more of that,
It's about taking something that's written as a fantasy and actually bringing the moviegoer along to the degree that they believe in it. I mean, there's something clever about the fact that he's actually thought it to make a joke to ease the mood. You know what I mean? So it's like looking at each other and sharing that laugh, I think, is worth it. You're dealing with a well-known book, so you have to be very sure when you're inventing something that it fits into the fabric of what's already been created. I think everyone is very, very intent on making sure that the movies don't betray what those books are, and that was very important to me, and it was to everybody on the film. One movie, Bella gets married, she has sex for the first time, she gets pregnant, she gives birth, she dies, and she's reborn. That's just the first movie, So the whole movie is a third act. And that was really fun. It felt very satisfying.
For the first time, I'm producing the movie as well as being the writer of the source material.
It's time to try to fire me? After every movie, she tries to fire me. Peter's not following the rules.
Really, the producer title hasn't changed much. I was really involved.
It's not too late to change your mind.
Why, are you having second thoughts?
I've been waiting a century to marry you, Miss Swan.
We would film a scene from the beginning of the first movie in the morning. We'd have lunch and then film a scene from the end of the second movie. It's crazy.
They each have to create their own emotional journeys for two separate movies.
If you're shooting part one, you got to completely ignore anything that you've already done in part two because it hasn't happened yet.
It was all about prepping my script and everything. I've got Post-it notes and sticky notes and different color markers, and I can look back and pull a tab and it says, this is what's happened, this is what happens after, and this is what's happening now. Bella, are you okay?
It was difficult, but we had Bill Condon there with us, to help us along the way. We had Stephanie.
The idea that we were going to be doing this for half a year did seem a little overwhelming, but I think it was right because it is one story, It is truly not two movies. It's a long story that's cut in half.
L'amore ci mantiene giovane. Edward and Bella are to be married.
Cut. And cut. Cut. And background.
I thought the essential thing about the wedding was to experience it as Bella would. This section of the film is not told in the same shorthand that most movies are made in these days. It takes a minute for her to get down the aisle. It's not just real time. I think you're in sort of a suspended time. I think because of the anticipation, it was possible to really settle into a different rhythm where you explore as many of those emblematic moments as possible.
Hey, what's up?
With Kristen as my collaborator, as long as we could really feel everything that she's going through as she's waiting for it, and then as she walks down that aisle and as she gets to Robert, then I thought it would be a satisfying experience.
I do.
It just felt so real. And everyone was sitting in the pews. I was like, thank you for coming to my wedding. It was just like, it was so cool. And I've sort of been ramping up to do that scene for like 3 years. It's a huge, elaborate sequence. There's a ton of stuff to shoot.
It's been building up and building up and building up. I think Edward's proposed to her about 50 times by now. So it'd be quite nice. At least he doesn't have to propose anymore.
We have the biggest wedding.
3 films have been about marry me, yes I will, when we're ready. Now the moment of truth is finally upon us.
No one.
We approached it from what will this wedding look like, where it won't look like everybody else's wedding.
It's kind of along the lines of Midsummer's Night Dream.
We were in the middle of the woods. It was very romantic and young and elegant. We wanted it to be very organic, to be part of the forest.
There's no white chairs, none of that. No typical wedding.
Flowers that just seem to be floating in air, and part of it is that they had to filter the sun.
And roll sound. Hey, only mark.
And action. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here on this beautiful day to bear witness, to witness the union of Bella and Edward.
To have and to hold.
Is it for better or for worse?
For rich, for poor, I thought.
It is. It's for richer or for poor, right?
I now pronounce you husband and wife.
Stop laughing.
Yeah. Everyone leaves, please. I don't know any of you people. It's really funny.
I did think that was a great place for everyone who'd been involved in the movies to make an appearance. So they're all in the audience, and that's fun, but it wasn't until I was putting the movie together. There was this one shot where we were sweeping past Stephanie, and she's looking into the camera, and I thought, you know, that might be a moment as Bella's getting her bearings if they just glance at each other, and it felt like it, you know, it's always tricky there because you don't want to do anything that's too meta or takes you out of it. But it also felt to me like a very moving moment of just character acknowledging her creator.
What a freaking gene pool, man.
Seriously.
You've got some,
What?
And cut.
It's really exciting because when you meet the Denali clan for the first time, it's at the wedding.
That's exciting because their characters were supposed to show up earlier. I always felt like they would. Over and over again, they kind of got pushed to the next novel and pushed to the next novel. And I think we feel a little bit that way. Everyone's been ready for them.
We come in for the wedding, and, you know, we make quite an appearance. I don't think humans are so used to seeing a bunch of golden-eyed vampires sitting around a table, dressed really well.
They look fantastic for the wedding. Tanya really dressed in the nines.
Oh my God, they're the gorgeous Denali sisters in great dresses.
There's like 400 people in our town, and half of us are supermodels.
A wedding is just also a chance for everybody to look great. So that was a really fun part of this.
The Denali clan started a diet to look okay for the wedding. We shot 3 months in Louisiana and New Orleans, so we've been eating a lot of fried food. Once we got here to Squamish, we're like, okay, now we have the wedding, you know. That was our goal, just to get a little bit more healthy. So we've been like working out, I've been hiking, cross-country skiing, so it's fun.
That entire Cullen family, and they're all great-looking people. I think Michael dressed them all beautifully.
The actors have been with these characters for such a long time. We sort of designed the dresses together, working out what would be appropriate for our people. We're dealing with very unique characters. They all have an interesting backstory.
Each one representing the spirit of when they lived, especially Alice.
Everything's packed and ready to go. My gown in particular, I've had a lot of say in, and we kind of created it from scratch.
With Alice's dress, we thought about the world that she came from, the 20s and the 30s. We looked at the dresses from those periods. We thought that Alice might be influenced by those fashions.
Alice is from the 1920s, and so I kind of thought it would be really fun to have that kind of inspire her look. So we created this kind of 1920-ish dress.
That period really suits Ashley so beautifully with her short hair and her fashion-forward kind of feisty look. We've given her dress a kind of sparkly quality, and then we added all the feathers down the hem because she is a great dancer, of course, and so we thought that would be great for the dancing sequence. For Esme's dress, we wanted to create something timeless, classic, very elegant that suited her character, so we found a beautiful beaded fabric. I dyed it into the sort of color tones that we were thinking of. We wanted to control all the colors really carefully for the wedding, so we kind of uses a lot of the Cullen purpley grey tones. Well, Rosalie, Nikki's a lot of fun to work with. She's got lots of great ideas, so we talked a lot about evoking the glamour of the 30s with her dress. So we looked at lots of references from old Hollywood sort of stills, and we came up with something kind of romantic and dramatic that suits her personality.
It's very elegant. I would say it's not over the top, but it accentuates very specific parts of the body.
I don't understand how fashion for guys hasn't really changed in the past 100 years.
I love my tux. I love it. It makes you feel like $1 million.
We worked with Brioni, who's an amazing Italian suit maker. I did some drawings of what I thought would be great for the boys, and they followed through and made up these beautiful suits right to the design. We thought it'd be fun to have some historical references in the suits, so I looked at suits from the 30s right through to the turn of the century. We have our velvet collar details, got a nice peak lapels. We've got different cuts. We've got, say, knee length and a hip length for the different characters. So it's a kind of nice mix of contemporary and vintage styles.